So I recently watched this great lesson on improvisation from Lorin. Lorin Cohen's a professional bassist. He has his own improv masterclass. I'll put the links below. But in the lesson, he goes over the 3 pillars of improvisation. And what I like is not only that he explicitly defines those, but then he breaks them down into 3 layers. And that's where I really found it very helpful to think about. Because I think it's easy to get caught up in the didactic academic stuff. And he breaks it down so simply that it's something that everybody can use. So I'm gonna go over those 3 in this video. So first, what are the 3 pillars of improvisation? So it's music theory, ear training, and technique. And I personally see it more like a Venn diagram. I feel like they're not silos that are all isolated. They all kind of bleed into each other and help each other. For example, when I was learning the Grateful Dead and Jerry Garcia, I didn't have the ear to be like, oh, that's C Mixolydian. He's playing a flat 7 in a major 3rd. So instead, I had to learn the music theory that, C Mixolydian is the same thing as F major. And then I took that to my technique. I started running that scale. And then after a while of running that scale and knowing that it was C Mixolydian, my ears kind of got used to it. And now I'm very familiar with the sound. I know how to use it. And I can also identify it a little bit better when I hear it in songs. I know other people that have gone the other way with it. I knew somebody that was like, I know what D minor to G sounds like. But they didn't know that it was D Dorian. And then they figured out, oh, that's D Dorian. Now they know the D Dorian sound. So those are just 2 examples of how all those things blend together. They're not isolated silos that you need to put a bunch of weight on. So that's level 1 in Lorin's class. So Lorin goes over how when he was teaching those 3 pillars, that a lot of his students would kind of get triggered and they would get upset. Each of them has their own baggage. When you talk about music theory, sometimes people are, get very upset about the academic part of it, and some people are so pretentious with it. With ear training, it can seem too daunting and just way too difficult to do in isolation. And then technique feels like, you have to spend all your time 8 hours a day shredding scales to get to a point where you have to have perfect technique. And so what he did is he broke them down. He's like, hey, instead of thinking of it just like music theory, ear training, and technique, just think of it as head, ears, and hands. And that already breaks it down and makes it a lot easier. So the head stuff is just anything music that you can think about when the instrument's not in your hand. And the ears are pretty much anything you can hear. So whether you're just listening to music or, playing with other people, just what do you hear? And then the hands is just the stuff you do with your hands. It's like that simple how he breaks it down. And that alone, I feel like, makes it a lot more accessible. So then Lorin further breaks it down to kind of a genius simple level of just, it's say, sing, and play. Because music theory at its best is just a way to describe things, just a way to tell other people what you're doing or a way to tell yourself what you're doing. Because we all know the sounds, if you're going from an E dominant 7 to an A, that's got a certain feel and a certain movement to it. But how do you say that? So that's what music theory gives you, is it gives you the ability to say that's a 5 to 1. That way you can tell other people or tell yourself, that way you can transpose it into other keys. The second simple layer of singing is like the closing the loop on ear training. Because if you can sing it, that means you can hear it, and then that means you can easily, then the next step is easy of just playing it. I wish somebody would have told me that when I first started, that singing or even just humming a note will help a lot. That's why audiating, singing as you play the notes can be good. I have a lesson on this on my channel page on how to start training that voice to ear training method. And the last level is just play, which I think is a good reminder, because sometimes we get so caught up in like the music theory or the ear training and academic stuff that you forget that we all just want to play music. So instead of thinking so hard and figuring out what notes they are and what the sound is and what the harmonic relationship is, it's also good just to play. And the more you play, the more your hands get used to the instrument, and then you get more physical freedom to let your mind kind of just dictate what your hands want to do. And then when you put all those together, obviously with improvisation, the goal is to get so comfortable with those three things that when you're playing with other people, or you're playing, music, you can kind of let go of them all and just improvise. It's kind of like when you work on the forms so much, eventually it becomes formless. It's kind of like that thing. If you're trying to fill those buckets, you keep filling those 3 buckets with water, eventually they overflow and it just becomes water. And that's kind of like the goal, is from the form to become the formless. Yeah, so I think that lesson was helpful to break it down to really easy, digestible ways to practice those 3 things to become a better improviser. So hopefully that helps.